Hi guys, welcome back. It's Andrew from Immortal Playing Cards, and in today's video we had a very insightful discussion with a world champion of card magic, someone who's been on Penn and Teller for us 3 times. He's got countless awards. His name is Shawn Farquhar. It was really nice to talk to him, actually. It was very insightful. He's a magician from Canada, and he's done pretty much every field relating to magic, so it was really insightful. So hopefully, if you have a specific field you focus on, he's got something there that may prove beneficial to you. I can tell you this, he's exactly the same compared to when he's on stage. He's just a very upbeat, happy person, and he's got a lot of knowledge, so I really hope you guys get some benefit out of this. So before we continue with that, I'm just going to announce the giveaway winner for my upload a couple of weeks ago. The winner is Robert Ball Magic. Congratulations, my friend, you have won yourself a purple Jerry's Nuggets playing cards. Drop me a message on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whichever's easiest for you, and I'll get it sent out for you. If you didn't win, don't be disheartened. We do giveaways frequently, and also if you order off our website, we have something called an amethyst ticket. So it's like a golden ticket, but it's purple, kind of themes with the website. And this gives you £50 store credit on our website. You all have the same chance, you just have to order something off the website, and you have a chance of winning this. Gotta love a plug. Anyway, without any further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the video.
No nerves. I'm just me.
I've been watching you for like a decade now, so it's a bit...
Because you're old, we've determined that.
Right, so I'm here with Shawn Farquhar. It's a bit surreal at the moment. Shawn...
Hi, Andrew.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's really nice because we've been chatting for about 20 minutes, you know, just nattering away. And yeah, it's really nice to kind of get a bit of insight about you and, you know, all your experiences. The intention for this is I want people to kind of be aware of your work and what you specialize in and so on. And also anything you can kind of give from your experience of magic that would be useful for people even new to magic, want to pursue it as a career. I feel like I'm doing all the talking. They hear me enough.
So, I have verbal diarrhea. Don't worry. Once you ask me something, I might just take over for a bit.
So the first thing I kind of wanted to do, for anyone that isn't aware of your work, can you tell us a little bit about you and what your style is and things like that?
Sure. I'm a Canadian magician, the 2-time world champion of magic. I've been doing magic all my life. My mom says when I was born, the doctor slapped me and I said, pick a card. I love to add a little bit of comedy to magic because I find that if you do things too seriously, people might take you seriously. And I've always been kind of the class clown, or a clown without a nose. Just don't have I have a nose. It's just, it's not red. I worked for decades on cruise ships, and before that, shopping centers, casinos, nightclubs, trade shows, even did birthday parties. I think I've pretty much covered the full spectrum of everything out there. And love doing it all, competing. I've competed in, 40, 50 magic competitions around the world. Everything from the IBM, the SAM, Pacific Coast Association of Magicians, right up to FISM. I hold 5 awards from FISM, 3 second places, a world championship in cards, and the Grand Prix World Championship, which is when they take all the world champions and they put us in a cage and we fight to the death. I eat, sleep, and drink magic, and I collect a lot of it. Well, I don't know if you call it collecting. I curate or I hoard. That's the word, I hoard, because I've got probably 1,000 decks of cards in my collection that are unopened. Yeah, I love yours. It's very cool.
The feeling, trust me.
I used to do big illusions, so I've got like 21 illusions sitting out in my garage. So yeah, a little bit of everything. You name it, I think I've tried it.
It's a long list, Shawn.
Thanks.
So that actually kind of adds on to another thing I kind of wanted to talk about. So you've won many, many awards in your career. I kind of want to know, and I must say to everyone that's watching as well, these are things I've wanted to ask him for about 10 years. So this is great. You've won a lot of awards. I'd like to know which one you're most proud of, not necessarily the highest ranking one, but which holds kind of dear to you.
I think I've got 3. The very first award I ever won, which was like back in 1984. I competed at the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians, and it was in California. And the competitors included people like Victor and Diamond, who were big at the time, Kevin James, Ed Alonzo, a guy named Jonathan Yarborough. He changed his name to Pendragon. They were all members of the Magic Castle youth at the time. And I was like just coming into the cusp of youth, and they were going out the other end of youth. And I don't know how it happened, but I won. And I remember driving for 2 days home in my van with the trophy on the dash, on the right there on the windscreen. And when I got to the border, the officer said, "How long have you been gone?" I said, "Oh, a week and a half." And he said, "Anything to declare?" I said, "I'm a winner." That's what I have to declare. So I put that one up there as number 1, 2, or 3. Second would be the Grand Prix World Championship of Magic that I got in Beijing, China, of course. And the one in between is a trophy I got in Macau. The Macau Magic Society gave me a beautiful glass plate, and it says, "To Shawn Farquhar for being." That's it. It wasn't like awarded for like being the best card magician or being a sleight of hand magician or it was just for being. And I think that's really great that they went, "Nope, just for being you." I think that's probably one of my favorite awards, just because they were saying, "Hey, you're Shawn Farquhar, and here's an award." I kind of like that. Yeah,
I suppose you can kind of put whatever you want at the end of that one.
I just like being. Kind of weird, right? It's normally, they're competitive awards. This wasn't a competitive award. It was just one somebody thought. I've had like lifetime achievement awards, which tells you I'm old, and which is cool for work I've done and all the stuff I've tried to get back to the magic. But for just for being Shawn, kind of a cool trophy.
Yeah, that does sound good actually, and it sounds like you've kind of come up with your own ending to that sort of
Yeah,
thing. It's quite
yeah.
cool. Awkward silence.
I love those moments. Nothing awkward about it unless we point them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have insight in general. It's just, yeah, it's really.
I think it's fun that you asked, about that all the trophies I won. I had a reporter once ask me, they said, "How many trophies have you won?" And I said, "Well, that's a research question. I'm pretty sure you can find that by going on the internet. The question you should have asked is, how many have I lost?" She goes, "Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, but it was mine, so you can't ask it." And then I just moved on because, you don't win everything. Heck, I'm pretty sure I've lost more than I've won. But those don't work out well for publicity to talk about those ones.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's a list of failures. It's very good. We'll put them on the other column.
There's actually a magician in Canada as well, Eric Leclerc.
I love Eric.
That man really helped me first starting. When you first get into magic, you want to meet all the people you look up to. He sent me a bunch of autographed things. He sent me a bunch of signed cards and all these things. And
I'm so happy to hear that. Eric, when he was starting, I used to bug him and say he was mini me because he had a lot of my characteristics. And then he slowly became, himself, which is crazy and pranksterish. And I think he's 9. I think he's always going to be 9.
Oh, he's bonkers. Let's be honest.
And his girlfriend, the mannequin head, Tanya. Yeah, it's very special. When he started his 365 project, I told him he was insane. And he came to me only a couple of times for ideas for routines because he was like, "I'm out of ideas." I'm like, "Well, you're the one who picked 365." But he pulled it off and got television out of it. Now he's, Big Trick Energy has become this huge thing with Wes and Chris. They're just really good people. I think they all do such a nice job. Eric was my roommate once. We went to a Bob Fitch workshop, and during the workshop, they pair everybody up. So Eric was my roommate. I got used to Eric streaking, not in the room, like through the hallways of the hotel. He just ran around naked. Eric's special. I love Eric.
Yeah, he's. It's nice to see that he's getting all this sort of success from that. I bought his lecture and he was just showing how he presents the invisible deck and how he does this and how he does that. And it actually really helped because it started making me realize about the little details you're not paying attention to.
Those are the things that he has. The best line I've ever seen in a magic competition. He came out like he was just out of a mental ward. And he said, "Me and my 2 invisible friends are going to do a magic trick for you. Guys, push up my sleeves." The sleeves went up automatically. And then he looked at the judges in the front row and he said, "Are you judging me?" And I just lost it because I think that's just such a great line. It's just
something I'm very curious about, actually. It's very interesting for me. I'd love to see this insight. You were on Penn and Teller Full Lust very early on. So when it was in the UK and you did your signed card to a sealed deck routine, still don't know how it's done. I was just wondering, what was the experience like? And also you've been on there another 2 times since.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know, because it's changed to Vegas and the host has changed, how was that? Because you've got a lot of well-known magicians working behind the scenes. I think Johnny Thompson works.
Yeah. In the beginning, he did until he passed. He was the guy.
Mm.
So I was the first act on the very first day of filming of Penn and Teller's Fool Us. They'd done a pilot, which is the one that everybody's seen, you know, where Graham and John win awards, and it was great. And I think it was shot almost a year before we shot the other one, because I got all these emails and a couple of phone calls from producers asking me if I wanted to be on a show called Fool Us, and I just kept saying no. They said, "Oh, we'll fly you to London," blah blah, and I was like, not interested. And then I was working in Paris doing a show, and I got a phone call from them saying, "We're giving it one last attempt if you're interested." And I was like, "Not really." I said, "Well, Johnny Thompson said, you know, you'd be perfect." I said, "What does Johnny Thompson have to do with this?" And they said, "Oh, he's our magic consultant and he's the magic judge." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'll be on the show." They're like, "What?" I said, "Sorry, any opportunity to meet Johnny Thompson, to hang out with Johnny Thompson, just to be in the same room with him, I'm there." I flew from Paris over to London, filmed everything in a day. They brought me in, took me to this little Canadian pub where I filmed the trailer. Then we went and ate some pizza while the guy who filmed it went and edited it. And then we went to Wembley Stadium, the studios that are by Wembley Stadium, and we filmed it. And the next morning I got on a plane and flew back to Paris to do my gig again. It was a whirlwind. Everything went wrong because it was the opening day. I was the opening act. They were still building the stage when I was performing. I mean, they were still screwing down stuff. And if you ever watch it again, you know, the wall opens up like this and closes and the acts come through. Well, it was originally on big fancy motors, and the trailers, the video piece on The Magician, they actually aired back then. In Vegas now, they just do a green screen and later they put them in. So we never see the actual bumper until it actually airs on television. But back in England, when we did in London, we actually watched the trailer, the whole audience. There's like 750 people. Andy Gladwin was in the audience. He can tell you, he'll attest to this. They got them all in there, got them all settled. And they said, "Our first act, blah, 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 blah." And they ran the trailer. And I was behind the wall waiting to go out. And there was a crowd of technicians all watching this TV screen. And I was trying to see my own bumper, but I couldn't even see it because there were too many people. And then when they went to open the doors didn't open, wouldn't open. The motor wasn't working. And they went, "Cut." And they apologized to the audience and said, "We got a technical problem. We'll fix it." 2 carpenters came up. They worked on it for a few minutes. All seemed fine. So then they ran the trailer again. Everybody was watching the bumper, but most of the techs had seen it. So there was like maybe 12 or 14 people blocking the TV, and I was still trying to see it. And the doors opened about this far. And I stuck my arm through and waved. The crowd all cheered. And then they went, "And cut." And then they did it again. And on the third one, it was just me staring at a TV alone backstage because everybody else had seen it twice. And the audience must have been bored of seeing my trailer. And then they disengaged the motors, and the 2 carpenters just basically opened and closed it. So that was the excitement of it. That's a phone call. I don't need to take that. See, I turned it off that quickly. They basically, they opened the doors. I ran through the doors, waved at the audience and said hello, and then did the trick. It was like being a horse, not being allowed out of the stable, like kind of opening the gate and closing it, opening the gate and closing it, and you just want to race. But the experience was phenomenal. They treated me really nice. I got to hang out with Johnny Thompson. That trick I've never explained to, well, I've explained it to my 2 kids that I mentor, the 2 guys, but otherwise I haven't explained it to people. And I explained it to Johnny Thompson, and he was like, "Oh, keep this one close, Shawn." I loved him for that. Even when I finished performing, it looks like there's like a 40-second gap and then they make their guess. That's not what it was. It was a long, long, long time because Penn's microphone was broken. So they had to replace it. So after I did the trick, I stood there on stage with Jonathan Wadsley and I just staring at this audience of 750 people while they did all this technical stuff. And Penn and Teller played with my card box and the deck of cards. And I'm like, that's not fair. I was pretty sure I was had because they had a good 20 minutes. It seemed like a lifetime. It was probably like 20 minutes before they were all set to go. And then Mr. Wadsley said, "You look a little nervous. Where are you from?" I told him Canada. "Oh, I've been to Canada. We have a place in Whistler." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" He was trying to calm me down the whole time. Really nice. And then he said, "Well, we're ready to go. We'll just pretend it's been a few seconds." I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, Shawn, do you think the boys had enough time?" And I said, "I think they had enough time to build a prototype." And they went, "Cut." And they said, "No, it has to seem like it's just, oh, okay." So he said, well, Shawn, do you think the boys had enough time? And I said, well, let's ask the audience. And they all laughed. They went, and cut. And the third take, Mr. Wasley just said, well, I think the boys have had enough time. Let's see what, and I was like, oh, I'm not included in this anymore. So I was really surprised that I fooled them, simply because they had so much time to think about it, and they're geniuses.
I must admit, Jonathan Ross did make the first season so funny.
Wasley, that's what he called himself. Wassy, Ross, Jonathan Ross, Wassy. That's why I have that in my head, because everybody kept saying Wassy to him.
Oh, right. Is that his nickname?
Yeah, he's not a big star here. So I think that he was originally supposed to be coming over to America to be the host, and it was kind of like a crossover thing, but that didn't work out. But Allison's a great host.
Yeah.
She's easily fooled, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Like the book test in the second one, which was a really great experience. My third experience was I was filming on the last day of filming, I think, and it was during the pandemic. It was definitely the last day, because I think my friend Clint was later in the same evening, and he was the last act on the last day. I was the first act on the last day, and I just wanted to get on a plane and get out of America and get back to Canada because the border was shutting down. And to be honest, I didn't actually want to be on again. I'd gone twice and I was happy, but the producers were very convincing that they needed one more person to make it an all-time foolers kind of thing. And so I agreed to do it. And it's still fun to do. And I got to promote my theater, which was good.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a little bit about that as well, actually. I'm quite intrigued about the whole theatre thing. In fact, we'll actually kind of go on to that, because I'm intrigued now. So for you, you've done Penn and Teller, you've worked on cruise ships. Did I hear something about Disney?
Yeah, for 6 years I worked for Disney, working on the Disney Wonder, the Fantasy, the Dream, the Magic. I worked on all their ships. Same time I was doing TV shows like Masters of Illusion and Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah, I've done a couple things.
Yeah, just a couple. What's next for you? So I know you're talking about the theatre thing. So
Hidden Wonders. Hidden Wonders is next for me. I was working for Disney Cruise Lines, and the ship, the Disney Wonder, came into Vancouver. And so I was like a passenger exploring my own city. And I realized I was never home, and I really didn't know my city. And I found this little empty store spot in Chinatown and went, I should rent that and put on a little show for 30 people. And so I just quit Disney and opened up a little 30-seat theater. I hid it behind a tailor shop because it was in a really bad area, and I didn't want people breaking in and taking the theater lighting, curtains and stuff. And then that became the theme. People were like, oh, it's hidden behind a tailor shop. It's really cool. And I'm like, wow, it's like a hidden wonder. And so I went from calling it Cabaret of Wonders to Hidden Wonders. And then when the pandemic hit strong, we had to close down. I reevaluated where I wanted to be. We found a new location in the original capital of British Columbia called New Westminster, as in like Westminster, but it's the new one. And I found a space that was 3 times the size of the old one. And I built a fake curio shop in the front. And all the curiosity items are all magic things. Like there's a comic book rack, but when you look closer, it's got Mandrake in it, and Batman versus Houdini, and Daring Escape comic books, and Zatanna, and all that sort of stuff. And then you go through a secret wall. There's a door in the wall, and you enter into this wonderful little lounge. Everything is Victorian style. And then I have a small Victorian rake seat theater, holds 30 people. And I do a choose your own adventure show because I didn't want to have a set list. I don't want to do what I've always done all my life, which was being told, hey, we need to see the stuff you did on Penn and Teller, do the stuff you did on Ellen, do the stuff you did on Master Illusion. They want to see that stuff because that's what they've seen on TV. But I have so much other stuff, and I'm pretty creative. I like to create ideas. And so I built this space so that I could do whatever I wanted. And then I realized that I might start just doing what I like doing. So instead I made it a choose your own adventure, and I've got like glass cabinets and little boxes, and audiences can pick, let's do something from that. Or I'd like the second shelf in that thing. And so it's a pick a menu kind of thing. They build the show. I know the opening and the closing, but everything in between, the audience chooses. So no 2 shows are the same, which is really cool. I didn't realize it, but it's a great marketing plan because people who come to see the show come back repeatedly. We've had some people come already 6 times in less than a year, because they're going, I didn't get to see that thing last time, and I didn't see that thing, and now I've seen that, but I need to see it again. And so they bring more friends back, and they keep coming back.
I've never heard something like that. That sort of way of doing it. That's really interesting, actually. And yes, people specifically know you for one particular effect. There's one that will always stick in their mind, and they'll want to come back and see that and experience it themselves. So that's
This
fantastic.
changes that formula, and it allows me the freedom of putting new stuff in the show all the time. I take stuff off the shelf and I put new stuff on the shelf. I put new stuff in the box. And I even say you can do magic with something from you. And maybe you go something from me. I'd say, can I borrow your glasses? And I do a magic trick with your glasses. Now that freaks people out even more, going, wait, it wasn't even something he had. I gave him something.
It's like you said, where on Penn and Teller Fool Us, and this kind of stuck with me. Something is a lot better in the spectator's hands, and then that kind of elaborated from borrowed objects and these sort of things. And
magic in the spectator's hand is so much stronger, and magic in the spectator's mind is even stronger than that.
That's definitely something that people need to take into account. You may have all the props ready, like let's say you have a coin, but if you can say to someone, does someone have this sort of coin, it just adds that extra layer of it.
Changes it completely. I watched Henry Evans at a 4F convention say, I could take out my deck of cards and do some magic, but someone in the room is going to think they're marked or tricked or something. So everybody throw a deck of cards to the table, and a dozen decks hit the table within minutes. And I said, that's brilliant. He says, I do it in the real world. He does public shows, and he says, bring your deck of cards with you and I'll do magic with it. And I was like, wow. And he'll get 4 or 5 decks and do a 4 or 5 deck routine using all these different decks. And I said, 2 great things. First, they know that it's not tricked because the decks are being thrown up. Second, you get to see all these other decks of cards that you may have never ever experienced in your life, which as a collector, I love the idea of going, where did this deck of cards come from? I want to buy those.
There's a really good kind of plot where I first kind of discovered this with Nick Einhorn's Lucky Card, and then it was kind of a rainbow deck. And I'm trying to remember the magician who it was that kind of did it from places he actually went in the world, where people usually say, I went here, but this person genuinely went around the world and literally got a card for
it. You might be thinking of Leonard Green. Leonard Green went around the world collecting them. Before him, Carl Cluchet had done that too. I have a deck of cards that's made up of all cards I collected from all over the world, which is great because when I look at them, I know, I went to this place in Monaco. I know the store I bought them from, and it's really fun to go through them.
Yeah, it's also nice because every card has kind of something you can elaborate on and relate to. I got married there. Oh, great. And then you can maybe do something with that. So that's
I think adding story to it is really great too. When you add story and context, it's no longer just a prop. It's actually like you're sharing memories with people. And that's so much better than here's a trick that I bought from my local shop and I'm going to make up a contrived story. Make it real.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been doing magic for about 10 years now, and I always say, because you always get people saying, teach me a trick, teach me this, teach me that, and I say to them, I'm going to teach them a template, so you do whatever you want with it, but make it completely different to how I do it, and things like that. And it's just really, they come up with their own thing, they use their imagination, and I think that's a big part of it. And I always say the actual trick is 20% of the overall effect.
Couldn't agree more. I always find it fascinating when I'm reading a book and the author puts in the script, the exact script, and I'm like, wow. And then you see people perform it exactly to the script, and you're like, I understand that, that could be a benefit, but I also think it's a hindrance because now you're only relating the story of the author, not your story at all. Even if you're the best actor in the world, someone's going to maybe ask you questions. I used to do, I have a trick in my show, Torn to Pieces. I still do it, torn and almost restored photograph. And I remember performing at the London Magic Circle and explaining it. And then I sold a few. And the next morning on television, there was a magician performing it on a morning talk show. And they were going, this is a picture of my daughter, Hannah. And I'm like, wait, that's my daughter. We spell it H-A-N-N-A-H, which backwards is H-A-N-N-A-H. And I'm like, wait, he's doing my jokes. And I thought, well, okay, that's all he had because it was just the night before that he'd seen it. But when they came back from the interval, the hostess started asking him questions about his daughter. And he had no answers for them because he didn't have a daughter. What does your daughter like to do? Oh, she likes to ride horses. Oh, really? What kind? Big ones. It was hilarious to watch.
I think every person in magic's kind of guilty of is kind of copying it word for word. And, it's one of those things where time kind of helps your confidence and also build your knowledge, and then you can kind of do that. And during this pandemic, I basically took all my tricks and thought, right, how can I change this to make it look more fair? And I never had that thought before. I perform things in my own way, don't get me wrong, but the actual trick, I was thinking, what can I do here? Because I've got the patter, that's me, the environment, that's me, that's fine, but what can I do to just add that extra layer onto it? So it's I think that's a very important kind of light bulb moment that people have.
I agree. That's the mark of the professional. It's fun that you mentioned Nicholas Einhorn and the Rainbow Deck, because I just love love the Rainbow Deck, and I love Nicholas Einhorn. Two good things in the same sentence.
I did say I'd tell you a quick story about Nick Einhorn.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, actually. So I live in kind of like an area where there's loads of trees, and there's a famous hill and all that, a very rural area. And I was working, and I was going around being my cheeky self. I was known as the cheeky waiter at my work at the time. And I've got tattoos here of playing cards.
Oh yeah.
I kind of theme this sleeve as things as I grew up. Like there are things from my childhood, and all these things, so I can look back and have all these amazing memories. And I got this because, if we all know, Chris Ramsey made that popular. It spells love there,
Yeah.
and they put down. It's kind of, it's nice to kind of reminisce and look back on these things. And the amount of attention I've had from people who do magic or magicians is crazy. I was doing an order, and there were these two kids there, and there were two gentlemen. And he goes, "Oh, what are those? Do you play poker?" I said, No, I'm a magician." "Oh, really? Oh, show us a trick." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll show you a trick." And then the kid blurted out that his dad was a magician. He was like, "Oh, yes, there's my other dad." I was like, "Okay." When you're working, you're in kind of, your mind's always racing, like you've got things to do. It's like Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton from Harry Potter came in, took me 20 minutes to notice him. I've got Harry Potter tattoos, everything. I'm a huge fanboy with Harry Potter. It took me a minute, and I was trying to figure out who it was, and I was thinking, and I then figured out it was Nick Einhorn. Oh, it was surreal when I realized. And I made a couple of jokes because he was on Penn and Teller, and he was doing things with food and tables.
Yeah.
Obviously, that environment I was in was opportune to mention something about that. And we were just talking, and again, these sort of things make you feel really inspired. And he gave everyone, he gave a little tip at the end, which is very kind of him. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much." He goes, "That's not for you." Oh, and okay, that's fine. If you weren't happy with how I was, that's fine. I understand. So I don't take it to heart. He goes, "No, I've got something better for you." The other person was Craig Squires. And at the time, I didn't really know of him, so I feel bad for that. And they gave me the effect Digital Force Bag.
Oh,
Are you familiar with that?
I don't know Craig Squires, but I do know Digital Force Bag.
Yeah, him and Nick Einhorn created it.
Oh.
And well, I think so. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, as a tip, he gave me that effect, and
Wow.
It was one of those moments where it was just so nice of him to do that, because he didn't have to do that. I probably would have bought it anyway, to be honest with you, but we won't tell him that bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had a photo with him. Such a nice person. It was really nice. And he kind of showed me a couple of things, and he caught me. He had a thing about catching me off guard. It was more of a I'm gonna make a magician look in the wrong place sort of thing. And that's where professionalism and his experience comes into play. And my goodness, such a nice man, really nice.
His ideas are so clever. The fool us thing with the plates and the food fools the crap out of me to this day. Nick and I competed against each other in the 2003 FISM Olympics in Den Haag, and we tied for second prize. And it's a funny story that they handed second prize to Nicholas. And then when I came up, they didn't have any more second prizes. So they handed me a third prize trophy and said, just hold this for the photo. I said, okay, it looks like I'm winning third prize. That's awesome. We took our picture. And as we walked off stage, they took the trophies back from us, said, sorry, we don't have enough. We'll mail them to you later. And I looked at Nick and went, wow, that was fun, was it? He goes, yeah, that was odd. So that's how we first met, then hung out a lot. He is mutual friend, John Allen, and I love John. Then years later, Nicholas sent me one of the coolest gigs I've ever done in my life. I did a show for a private client. It's got non-disclosure, but they flew me to a private island, and it was Nicholas who referred me for it. And when I did it and they asked me to come back, I wasn't able to do it. So I referred Nicholas. I think he went back, and then I got referred back and did it a second time too, which is kind of crazy to do this, little private island gig. Yeah. He's definitely a super great guy. It's so clever. And his book is like translated into multiple languages now. It's crazy good.
He released something with Prop Dog. I know you shop at Prop Dog, and
I love Prop Dog. Those are good people.
Yeah, they're a really nice bunch, and I'm a bit of a believer where I buy my things from the magic shop, though I have access to wholesale for my playing cards and things like that. It's kind of more of the moral of supporting the magic shop, because they're all going. It's
Dave is just a hustler. He's got everything together, and it's such a good way. We actually started off on the wrong foot with a misunderstanding, and he handled it so well that I will do anything for this guy. In fact, my last time in the UK, we drove out of our way to go and hang out. I just was going to drop in for half an hour. I think I was there until dinner time. And it was like, I'm overstaying my welcome. It's like, no, stay. I was like, no, got to go. Brought my whole family to hang out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun, because my friend actually lives close to there, and he always tells me off for how long I spend in there, because it's all there.
Yeah,
completely different from a computer screen to being there. Aspect is very important, and yes, I'm very old-fashioned in that sense, but I kind of got into Magic before the whole internet takeover. The past few years, it's just overtaken everything.
Everybody's got a release that day, and there's no history to tell you where they got it from, and 2/3 of them are rehash of another one, and 2/3 of the trailers are not real, or they say something. It can be fully examined, well, by a blind person maybe, but nobody else. It drives me insane now. I'm old. I love brick and mortar. More than just to be able to see the tricks is to meet the community. When there's a magic shop in a town, I go there, and the people that come through, that tells you what the magic community is like. And if they're friendly to each other, or there's animosities, and you can bring people together really easy through a magic shop.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a huge shame that there was Davenport's Magic in London, which shut down a while ago. I wasn't aware of that until probably about 6 months later.
I love visiting them in the tube station. First time I found them, Charing Cross. Yeah, first time I found them was by accident. I was looking up above, and I finally gave up and went down into the tube and went, oh, there it is. And spent an afternoon in there too.
Yeah, every magic shop you go in gives you an experience or inspiration. It's a shame, because also people say, oh, what about this trick? And they will perform it to you, that kind of thing. Yeah. And
they'll tell you if it's shite or not, because they're not afraid to go, no, I bought one in and you don't want it, and here's why. I think that's what's great. I think that magic shops, as opposed to online, magic shops are actually curating, they're developing and helping magicians to grow. The online just goes, you're a customer, I got your money, and if you don't like it, tough luck, and move on. I have an online one, Palmer Magic, but I'm very clear when people write things, so I'm new to magic, and then these tricks are not for you. This is a better one for you, and start with that. And if you like my style, then this is the next trick. And people go, really? I said, yeah. And I said, and every once in a while they go, well, I think that one's too hard. And I'm like, actually, you got that wrong. This one is the easiest. Do this one first. If you really love it, do it. I'm cultivating a group that will follow me forever. And when something good comes out, I say, here's a good. The other day I posted about a trick that's not mine, just going, I saw Henry Harrius do the Cuban bottle. And I said, this is a trick everybody who wants to do a stunning magic trick in a stage or parlor show should buy. End of story. People are like, so what do you get for it? I said, nothing. I get the satisfaction of knowing that Henry created a great trick and people are buying it and performing it. That's all I need.
And that's something I respect about Prop Dogs as well. That hence why I will go there, is because they're very honest.
Yeah, their reviews are great.
They've gotten a lot of trouble with Murphy's, I believe, because Murphy's is like the main supplier for a lot of magic shops. And if they kind of downgrade it, the sales don't come in as consistently or whatever. So it's entertaining to watch, but it must be quite.
You have other ones like Saturn in the UK that are great, and they're straight up like, this trick is a piece of crap, and we won't sell it. And I'm like, good for you for saying that. It's like another one's like, this is brilliant, and I don't know why everybody isn't performing it.
Yeah, it is, and not looking to just sell it to you.
Yeah.
You know, they are realistic and they take into account what you do. Are you close up? Are you stage? And they can be like, no, it won't work. No, it won't do this. It won't do that. And the amount of money I saved or directed into something else because of being told that, and then found out this won't work unless they're dead on straight to you. Oh, wait, I go around circling tables. So this.
How can you do that? Exactly. The
And
reset's 4 hours.
some not far off.
Hey, I know a trick where the reset is 10 days. Yeah. It's a brilliant trick. I just bought enough that I could reset 20 of them.
So what's the kind of plot?
The trick is Clone, I think is the name. It's brilliant, from a magician from Mexico. It's a signed bill to anywhere. It was on Penn and Teller's Fool Us and Full Penn and Teller, but the reset is really, 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 really long. But luckily they tell you that in the instructions. When you go to buy it, it even says, you know, the reset is really, really, really long, but it's worth it.
As long as it does the job, that's the main.
Does the job brilliantly.
Yeah.
You just need to wait a long time to do it a second time, and they give you enough to do it, I think 3 or 4 resets. But then for a guy who's working all the time every weekend, I needed multiple weekends worth of resets.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got kind
well worth the investment for the trick though. But yeah, a reset takes 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was watching you when I was younger after Penn and Teller, you were saying there was one trick you were working on for 10 years and you still haven't, don't perform it. And then that kind of was the realization where it's like, whoa, there's a lot of work in this. My goodness, 10 years and he's still not performing it. And at that point, I was still quite new to it. So I learn a trick and I go and perform it. And it's all these little things you take from it. And again, that's why I feel magic shops are an important thing, because they're honest and, you know, you kind of see it firsthand. So it's,
Put you on the right track.
Yeah, definitely.
My mother was my human mirror when I was young. I referred to my parents as my human mirrors. And my dad was always, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. And my mom was, you think that's going to fool somebody? It's like, okay, thank you. She was very honest. And when it did, then I knew I could take it anywhere. It was bulletproof. When my mom said, that one's ready. Yeah. I remember going to a banquet show with magicians. I was on the show and another magician was on. And my mom, when we left in the car, she said, how come you can't be funny like that other guy? And I was like, thanks, Mom. And that's when I started adding humor into my magic.
I mean, it's the same sort of thing with me. My mother is my practice spectator sort of thing. And my dad, he's kind of, that's this sort of character who won't be overly impressed. He definitely won't show it.
I think those are the magicians you need. Those are the audiences that a magician needs to become a better magician.
Definitely. And this is the reason why I say this is because this is a really important point. And I want to get your kind of views on this. My dad's favorite trick is the invisible deck. It doesn't, and I believe Michael Vincent said this, and I love a quote. I really do. He said something like, it doesn't matter how simple the effect is as long as the effect is pure.
I think magic takes place in the spectator's mind. So the simpler it is, the more pure it is, the more magical it will be to them. The less explanation there is or any way to fall back. I hear these people say the too perfect theory, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but too perfect can be just perfect magic. It just, you know, maybe you're looking at it because it's a puzzle and you go, oh, it's too perfect. And I'm like, yeah, but perfect magic would be perfect. Yeah, I will do just about anything to get the perfect effect in any way. And I love the invisible deck. It's one of the things on the shelf at Hidden Wonders. It will always be in available to me. In fact, I have 3 different methods: the classic method, and one of my own, and one a friend created. And the one I created is a fully examinable deck of cards. And I love that moment. It's too perfect. And when the spectator, you know, spreads the cards in their own hand, a brand new deck that they open, they remove the cards, they spread out the cards from the brand new deck. They see one card reversed in the deck and it's their card. And then I say, you keep that deck of cards as a souvenir. And you can just see him sitting there gobsmacked with their jaw down going, what? And I've seen other magicians come in and go say, you were just lucky. And I'm like, yeah, I'm lucky every time I do it. It's like,
I mean, there's a lot of variations as well. I've just recently got All Alone by David Regal. I've always loved the effect of ending with a blank deck, but something is there's always been a little flaw with the particular effect. And I've actually just bought one, which I haven't got yet. And it starts where they have a card in their hands and they name any card and they turn it over and it's the 52 cards on one playing card. I love that. It's a game I've used for years, but I've never been able to go on to something with it because it always used to be this jumbo card with this, and
having it as a regular size. I played with the idea of having the jumbo card and the regular card with all the cards on it and holding my finger on it so they see everything, but lifting my finger and showing that the card they asked for is missing.
That's the same sort of concept with the invisible deck one that I was referring to. They put it back in their hand, and obviously there's something done at that point. But then when they turn it back over, there's one card face down on the 52 cards to one, and it's in numerical order, so you can see it's that particular card. I just love it.
Sounds like it's playing off of Tano Osaka's idea years ago. Very cool.
Yeah, I just looked at it and I thought that would be clever one day. That would be really good for something. That would be a good add-on. So
one of my favorites is by Stephen Bargatze, and it's a trick called I Hate Card Tricks, where the spectator only thinks of a card and nobody knows the card besides the spectator. And in the end, it's the only card in a blank deck. And first time Stephen did it on me, just blew my mind. Second time he did it on me, it blew my mind. The third time it was annoying my mind. I really, really love that effect. Sorry, I'm going to cough again. Today I ate some almonds. I don't usually eat almonds, but they were sitting on the counter and the little bits of flecky from the almond are tickling the back of my throat today. That's my fact of the day. And I have this, a Houdini action figure. Okay, so that's another fact of this.
What was the other one you showed me when I first came on?
Harry Houdini bobblehead. So the front area of my theater is a curiosity shop. And so everything in it is like toys and old stuff. So these are things that I'm acquiring around the world to add into the curiosity shop so that in amongst stuff, when they look, it'll just look like toys and crap unless you look closely, at which point you go, hey, wait, that doll is Mandrake the Magician. Hey, that's a Houdini action doll. Hey, that bobblehead is Harry Houdini. So that as they look through the place, they realize nothing in the store is garbage. Everything is curated, interesting items that have some significance to magic. Like I just got a poster of Sergeant Fury, Nick Fury, pardon me, not Sergeant Fury, Nick Fury. It's a poster of Nick Fury. But the poster's significance is it's illustrated by Jim Steranko. And only card magicians would know, but Jim Steranko wrote one of the best books I've ever read, Steranko on Cards, back in like 1962. And then became an illustrator for Marvel and basically stopped doing magic. And so by having things like that, it's just for me, when people go, well, what's the significance of that? I said, well, Google Steranko and you'll see. And people, oh my God, he was a magician. Yes, he was. So
it's always interesting when you find out these kind of backstories, and you can also sometimes see it when you focus on that art form. Sometimes it can have certain things in a film, probably in some things he's done, just for the magicians out there, the little hidden bits and bobs. And I think they call it Easter eggs.
The Easter eggs. I've added an October 1962 Genie magazine to the comic book rack because the entire issue is illustrated by Jim Steranko and it's all on escapes. And so I want to be able to put the Nick Fury comic next to the 62 Genie so that when I say this is signed by him, here you can look in the Genie magazine. Here's his illustrations before he worked for Marvel. And aren't they beautiful? It's all about magic. And that we lost somebody, you know, from the world of magic into the world of comic books.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna actually have a look into that. That actually sounds really intriguing.
Really cool.
I basically kind of wrote a bunch of rough bits and bobs just to kind of have a look on, and a couple of curiosity questions on my part. And I've always wanted to know, what's your favorite plot in, let's say, close-up magic? So I assume you've won the world championship for close-up card magic. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So what is your favorite plot? Because I know you do a bit of Omni deck, you do Ambitious card, you do quite a few classical things and things like that. I'm just wondering, what's your favorite plot at the moment?
I really love two. The one I explored the most was the ambitious card, which is where I created my shape of my heart routine based on basically an ambitious card to music. And the second is the any card at any number. I really love the ACAN, and I created my own version of it because I really didn't want to do what other people do. My ACAN I call HG effect, as in Holy Grail. And I wanted to remove all the parameters that I saw in all the other ones. I wanted to do an any card to any number using a borrowed shuffled deck of cards. And I wanted it to be a 3-phase routine, not a single phase, because I think a single phase is just like a puzzle. Any great play has 3 acts. And so I wanted 3 acts, and I wanted to make each act successively increasingly harder. And I wanted to educate the audience. And so it took years to come up with it, but I wanted on the first phase for the audience to tell me the name of the card and the value, the number, and then for them to count and find it. And then on the second one, I wanted them to select a card so that the card value was unknown to me, but then to give me a number and find it. And then on the third phase, to just think of a card and then just start placing cards down randomly from the top or the bottom, the middle, in groups, clumps, it didn't matter, but stop wherever they wanted to, not even knowing how many cards were there, and then have the card there. So that as an audience member, you think, wow, that was impossible on the first phase. Then when you say, this time I don't know the name of the card, that makes it even harder on the last one. Not only do I not know the number, but I don't know the value. I know nothing about it. So it's just totally up to you. And the best part, I think, with ACAN done that way is it puts all the power in the spectator's hands. They're counting the cards, they're picking the card, they're thinking of the card, they're turning over the card. Now you've not become, look, I'm special. You've made them special, which makes your magic even more powerful because they leave with that feeling of, oh my God, I just, he flipped through the cards. I thought of one of the cards I saw. I started putting them onto his hand. He let me turn over the top card, and it was it. And that's what they remember. So yeah, ACAN is probably, I wanted to make any card and any number entertaining and valid, because most of them weren't. And it was like, yeah, think of a number, I don't know, between 10 and 25. I'm like, what? It's like, oh, and let me take them out of this box, or I really wanted to make it different. I think ambitious card has so many levels to it that it's something I can explore for the rest of my life. There's a new move every time I look at it.
Usually people follow kind of the standard way to it. And then I started kind of doing the whole thought process of, this is a template, what more can be done? And most of it is similar, but there's a couple subtleties to make the plot bigger and bigger every time.
Exactly.
I it's annoying when I don't know the name of the magician to not credit them, but he would show the cards and he would put half the cards down, something like that, and then get someone else to sign the back of the other card, put it down, the card's still out, Joe, he pushes it in, they snap, and then it merges. So you can add the ambitious card into a completely new effect. So it's nice because the ambitious card has that flexibility.
It's fun that you ask about plots, because Roberto Giobbi back in Genie magazine sat down and defined, and he came up with 101 plots. And I've been studying at the moment because I'm working on a documentary with a film company called Lost in the Shuffle, and it's about the relationship between magicians and playing cards. And we're exploring it with 4 magicians and asking them what their favorite plots are. People like Juan Tamariz and Alexandre Duvivier and Michael Vincent and Richard Turner. And so I'm looking forward to learning what their favorite plots are, because my idea is to take their 4 plots, add it to my favorite plot, and then make a routine using the 5 plots.
That's going to be, I mean, I can kind of guess a couple of those magicians' favorite plots, and yeah, wow, you've got your work cut out for you in that.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's
the idea is that each of them will tell me what the plot is, explain it to the audience what it is. Then they're going to explain where they started. In other words, what the incubus of that plot was, the beginning of it, and then where they took it to make it uniquely their own. Then I have to take from what they've made uniquely their own, take those all together and make it uniquely my own. Oh, and during it, the entire trick using those 4 plots and mine is to illustrate a story, which is the cold case murder that's hidden in a deck of playing cards.
Do you ever stop? Like, did your mind ever just let's have a rest? Is that?
Yeah, no. I'd say when I sleep, but that's not true, because when I sleep, I'm thinking about things because I wake up in the middle of the night and write them down. I don't know. No. I'll stop thinking when I stop.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that kind of discovers something in the middle of the night and has
The
that.
best time, Andrew. That's the golden hour. I usually go to bed when I see my neighbors getting up to go to work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a night owl myself, so that's it's always a thing. And it's weird because there's an effect. I'm not the sort of person that creates tricks ever. I'm not that sort of person. Though I feel I've got a good imagination, I've never been able to create tricks. And then I was sitting at this desk and I was doing something completely different to cards, and all of a sudden I just had ESP cards, this and this and this. I was like, okay, so it's, I have no idea what caused it, and now I've just been adding on to it, and I do not create magic, so it's just really interesting. And I haven't actually watched it in about a week because I'm not inspired to do that at the moment. But when you're in that mindset, I'm really hoping I can come up with something quite nice, because it would be the first trick I've ever kind of created solely. And because people say they create tricks, but it's actually this trick, but you're handling of it. So that's a bit of a difference.
I think creating magic has so many different levels. Lance Burton, in his book Advice, talks about how he created his sword duel, and that he said he was somewhere between sleep and not sleeping. And he said it was like he was watching a video of the trick, and it was like just playing, and he could actually stop it and rewind and watch it again. And then after several times of watching this trick in his brain, that he could see exactly how it worked, that he actually ran it in reverse and watched the trick in reverse. And he said that's when he realized, oh my God, this isn't a video, it's just in my head. And then from his not awake, he just got up and went, I know how to do this. And then went about building it. And people are like, how did you come up with it? I didn't. It just was inspired. And that's probably some of the best magic. Most of mine comes from seeing magic that I think is flawed, or a plot that's flawed. Cups and balls. So many people have done it so many ways. I wanted to do cups and balls, but I wanted to do it differently. You probably haven't seen it, but I'm going to release it around Christmas time. This is my design of my cup. It's a solid block of steel. It's just, yeah. Yeah, I do cups and balls. It's called Block and Balls. The ending is 3 blocks. It's crazy. I did it in 2003 when I competed against Nicholas Einhorn.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's been out there for a while. Well, I won IBM with it and SAM with it long before then, back in 2000. I was performing it back in the 90s, but I just kept it to myself all this time. But I looked at cups and balls and said, everybody does it. And it all seems to have the same ending of, look, there's a big something, there's something. Wouldn't it be cool if at the ending it was like, look, there's a big something, and I don't know how it came out of this block of steel. And, oh no, these are blocks too. In fact, they're all blocks. Examine them. And people just stare at big blocks. I went, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And I created it. Same thing with the ambitious card, having it end in a brand new deck of cards. I just thought, how do you do an ambitious card routine and make it something amazing? Well, you have them go back into a brand new deck of cards, sealed, marked in the correct position.
You know, as time goes on, I can think of certain effects and see how that inspired that and stuff like that, but I still don't know how the actual effect was executed. And I remember seeing this a while ago, and there was someone who put revealed on your sealed deck of cards.
Oh, really?
Oh, trust me, you commented on it.
Oh, I did? Okay, then that wasn't a real method, because I haven't seen my method yet. Most of my comment and say it's stupid or foolish.
No, it was interesting actually, because it was this young, those people these young kids who,
yeah, the 14-year-old who thinks the secret is in dismantling the piano to find the music.
Yeah, and I kind of get their mindset, and I understand the the excitement and things like that. And you basically said to this kid, wow, you figured it out. I didn't realize it was this easy for me to do it, and things like this. But the difference is, I've seen magicians over the internet hurl abuse at these kids.
Yeah, you can't do that. That won't help.
You got your point across, but you didn't knock him, because I think that can make people give up the art altogether.
I had a young person that wrote in a forum for a trick. They said, is there anywhere I can get the template? They need the template for something. They said, does anywhere know where I can get that template? And I commented, yeah, you can buy the DVD for $20 and it comes with it. And their response was, yeah, well, if it wasn't so expensive, I'd probably buy it, but you're ripping us off. And I came back with, maybe you don't understand. When it sells for $20, I sold it for $6 because there's a markup to the wholesale company, and the wholesale company has a markup that they give to the retailer, and the retailer has a markup they give to you. So from that $6 DVD, I paid to print the DVD and buy the case and print the piece of paper that went around it, and to burn the DVD, and oh yeah, rent the studio and come up with the magic trick and put it all together. So when you look at my $6, I'm making about $2 off of each DVD. So on 1,000 DVDs, which is kind of a regular run of something, I made a whole $2,000. I do a public show for a corporate client for $2,500. So why would I bother making these things to rip you off if you think that's what I'm doing? Instead, I'm doing it to help the community. And I met that person about 8 years later. They were on a Disney cruise, and they came up and said, hi, you won't know me, but my handle on YouTube is, and I went, oh, we had a conversation about DVDs. Yeah. How do you remember that? I said, I don't forget things like that. And they said, I just wanted to apologize in person. As a kid, I didn't know that there were all those levels to it. I just assumed if you charge $20, you got $20. I said, that's why I explained it, because I think 90% of people don't understand that. And if I just said, you're a jerk, well, then I just lose you as a friend and nobody else is educated. So I'd rather be nice and explain it to you in terms that maybe you understand. And if you turn around and still think I'm a jerk, then that's more of a reflection of you than it is of me.
Yeah, it's one of those effects that has many different ways to achieve it, but there's always a flaw. But your effect is kind of, like you say, the holy grail of that particular part. And yeah, it's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting effect, definitely. And you don't sell it or anything, do you?
I released to the community something that was similar because so many people were upset that I wasn't. I said, some magic isn't meant to be released yet. I promised I would, and I will one day. But I released a trick called RSVP, Resealed Verified Pack. And it's actually stronger for a lay audience because it starts with a brand new deck of cards. I have them shuffled. I explain that when you leave the cards long enough, they unshuffle themselves. And I demonstrate an oil and water with just 3 and 3 reds and blacks separating. And then when you return to the deck is back in new deck order. So then I get them to shuffle the cards. They shuffle them face up and face down. Then they put them in the box and I have them sign the outside of the box. And they hold the box in their hand. And while they're holding it, the box reseals with their signature on it. And then when they open it up, they remove the cards. The cards are in new deck order, but one card is missing because during the shuffle, I accidentally drop a card on the floor. And so that card is missing from the sealed deck at the end. So it's this wonderful little convincer of, oh my God, there's the card. It's just, yeah, I find it better. RSVP is a really strong trick. It's multiple phases of the oil and water, the separation of an entire deck. I teach a variation of the slop shuffle that goes all the way back into Scarns on Cards, but I learned from Aldo Colombini, and it's a great routine. And people go and say, but you haven't taught the other one. I said, yeah, but the one I'm teaching you is really good. You like the other one because there's a puzzle. I like RSVP because it's entertaining and amazing. And the audience remembers it exactly the same as, and then I opened my hands and there was a sealed deck of cards. And that's important.
And I also noticed when the spectator explains something, someone will come in and say, oh, what did they just do? And I always get them to tell them, because what people don't realize is they don't process everything. Like these little details that you didn't make a big thing out of were not even processed. So they said, so let's say I was performing the invisible deck. Oh, he said name any cards. And then she went, he showed me all the cards and they were all normal. But what I was doing, I was spreading through to find that part.
Sure.
But, you know, it makes it
they see a different validation of it.
Yeah.
I remember on a cruise ship in an elevator, we were in the Bahamas, and I got onto the elevator with my wife. There was an older couple, both ladies, and they were talking about a magic show. So I kind of eavesdropped, and it sounded like a brilliant magic show, which I assumed they just seen in the Bahamas because they were like afternoon shows that people go to. So I said, excuse me, ma'am, I couldn't help it over here. You're describing an amazing magic show. I'm wondering when you saw it. And she turned around and says, well, where have you been? And I said, what do you mean? She says, it was on the stage last night here on the ship. And I was on the stage that night on the ship. And I was like, oh, really? You saw that on stage? And she described something that I didn't even do, but the way she remembered it was brilliant, way better than what I did. And I was like, oh, I really wish I'd seen that show. And she said, he looked a little like you. I said, oh yeah, probably better looking though. And I got off the elevator because I didn't want her to be embarrassed and go, oh my God, it was you. And yeah. And my wife just couldn't stop laughing, going, they were describing you and you didn't even recognize this. Yeah, because it wasn't me. She goes, yeah, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's I suppose you get a little kick out of that when they don't realize. But that actually adds on to my final question. So buy notebook. And that is, there are people of all different kind of at different stages of their journey in magic. So there's beginners, there's intermediate, there's advanced, there's people that are going to take the jump to do it full time, and there are people just getting into it. Do you have, in your experience, any tips or advice or something that will kind of help benefit them in some sort of way?
It's a great question. Eugene Berger, who was a mentor and a friend of mine, said that there are many rooms in the house of magic. And I think that is so important because, some people go, well, if you're not a professional, I don't want to talk to you. Or if you're just an amateur, oh, I'm an amateur, I don't want to talk to professionals, or I'm only into mentalism, or I'm only into comedy or grand illusion. And we all seem to want to segment it when we all have one passion, which is magic. And we may start as a trickster because we want to, learn behind the trick that fooled us. And then later we want to be a performer, and maybe later a sage who teaches. But we all have that one thing, and that is that we love magic. And if you want to be good at it, try to keep the reason you want to do magic. Keep that forefront. Remember that feeling the very first time somebody performed a magic trick for you and the way you felt. If you can capture that in even one of the pieces you do in your magic, you're going to be successful to anybody's measure. Success is measured differently for each person. But the one thing that people will define as successful is when you make other people feel a sense of wonder. I think the biggest thing to help me to be who I am today, and I think I credit it to 90% of my success, is discovering who I was. When I was young, I wanted to be Lance Burton or Channing Pollock. And if you look at the pictures, I wanted to be Mandrake the Magician. You'll see the pictures with my little mustache and my top hat, trying to be suave and debonair. And that wasn't me, though. I was hiding behind a character. And every once in a while I hear about magicians going, oh, I'm a character. I'm like, that's great if you're a great actor, but most people aren't. The best character I think you can be, no matter what level you are or wherever you want to is be yourself. Maybe amplified a little bit. We'll all start by emulating somebody else. That's the nature of it. Ooh, I love the magic of Jeff McBride. I'll start out being like Jeff McBride. But then sooner or later, you have to become yourself. You have to really look deep and go, who am I as a person, and what makes me unique, and how do I make that better for my magic? And then as soon as you learn that, which will take some time, but as soon as you learn it, everything else is easy, because after that, you can pick the magic that fits you, you can learn the magic that suits you, and you can perform it as you would perform it because you know who you are. And that makes your magic unique, because there are 1,000 people doing the same trick, but there's only one of you.
Do you know what amazes me the most? The fact that whenever I've interviewed people in any instance, I always had to send them the questions in advance. I haven't sent you anything and you just come up with answers straight away. Do people ask you these questions a lot by any chance?
No. Today is filled with interviews, but no, I think I think about things a lot, and I want to know. I learned that when I taught, I learned. I never realized that. When I was young, I always thought teachers, they just knew what they had and they taught it. But I've learned that as I taught things, I learned from it. And sometimes I learned that what I was teaching wasn't correct, and that I've learned a better way to do it by sharing and answering questions and thinking about it and teaching. I do these things called sessions with Shawn. They're like a Zoom thing. They go for like 4 hours. It's always just 20 people. And I teach, but I don't just teach the trick. I teach how the trick came to be, because there was always this mystery in the creativity process. People just think, oh, the light turns on and it happens. For me, it's not that. I struggle. I've notebooks and notebooks. I've got in that drawer over there, probably 20 notebooks, and some of the worst ideas you've ever seen. and some absolutely brilliant ones, and some that I think are brilliant, but I haven't found a way to make them work yet. And so by doing these sessions with Shawn, it gave me the opportunity to teach and for people to ask me questions and for me to question my own answers. So no, I don't get asked a lot of questions, but when I do, I've given a lot of thought to what it would be if the question was asked to me. So I guess I'm always prepared.
That's one way of saying it. Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this little, well, I would say interview discussion with you.
Thanks.
And it's nice to see that, you know, when you've followed someone for a very long time throughout their career, it's nice that they're the same, because I've noticed there are some magicians who are a certain way and then in other ways they're not. But
Met those people. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When I was young, I had my heroes that turned out to be the people that weren't my heroes, but I was young. I always hear that expression. It's don't meet your heroes because you'll probably be disappointed. I've never been disappointed by any of my heroes since I turned 20, because I learned to pick my heroes carefully. And I use the word hero. It could just be somebody I admire. But the people I admire or want to be mentored by or influenced by, I'm really careful. I don't just look at what their talent is. I look at who they are. And because of that, I remember meeting Lance Burton for the first time and just thinking, I could be your best friend forever. And we just hit it off, having a wonderful conversation. It was like unbelievably friendly. And then I've met other ones where I just go, wow, I wish I'd never met you when I was younger, going, you're just a jerk. And you just look like a nice person on stage, but off stage, you're horrible to other human beings. And yeah, my dad said, we're all part of a really big show and we're just playing a small part. And I'm good with that.
It's interesting as well, because I had a couple of experience of maybe not necessarily meeting them, but seeing how they are, or from topics of other people talking about it, and you kind of look at them in a new light. But the way I've kind of come to terms with it now is, though you as a person aren't what I expected, I respect the work you put into this particular effect and things like that. And I think that's definitely a way you've got to think about it, especially if you have that sort of negative experience with someone you look up to.
That's a great way to look at it. I've got 4 books by a magician over there that I couldn't sit across the table from, but his writing is brilliant. His thinking is great. He's just not a nice human, but I still admire his work and the work he put into it. And in fact, I do a couple of his pieces. I just never speak his name and plan to never be in a room with him. And I'm okay with that.
Oh. Well,
on the other hand, there are people like, Fantasio, who, created Canes and Candles. And I would walk across broken glass if I could spend another hour with him. He just lit up a room. Same as Eugene Berger. These are people that lit up a room when they walked in. Their magic was well thought out, and they made other people feel good about themselves when they were in the room. And everybody counted. You didn't have to be a professional to be in the room. You didn't have to give money. You just had to show up, and they would treat you very special. I miss people like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. It's been amazing to have this insight from you, and I thank you so much for your time. I really do.
Thanks for inviting me, Andrew. This was a lot of fun.
It's been a pleasure. It really has.